Okay, so recently I've really been hating making bookish content, and there are a lot of reasons why, but one of them came to me earlier this week in a sudden flash as I was scrolling through my Bookstagram and BookTok feeds and realizing that although I had managed to escape the corner of these communities where, Colleen Hoover, Sarah J. Maas, Rebecca Yarros all reign supreme, although I have managed to avoid that part of these book communities, I am still unable to escape the few white darlings of the publishing and book community. Now, what do I mean by white darlings? In each genre, I feel like there's at least one white darling that we all love to prop up. For literary fiction, it's Sally Rooney. For contemporary romance, it's Emily Henry. For smutty romance, it's Ali Hazelwood. For dystopia, it's Suzanne Collins. For fantasy, it's V.E. Schwab. The list goes on, but for those of you who are new to my channel, you may not know that I actually absolutely adore all of these authors. I have read and loved a bunch of their books. I own a bunch of their books. And when I say that they are the white darlings of the publishing industry, the book community, I mean that they are the darlings, the favorites of this community that is constantly saying that it wants to diversify itself, to, prop up unheard voices, but we are constantly only talking about the same few authors who are accomplished and amazing and incredible writers in their own right, but they are not particularly special. This is probably an unpopular and spicy take for some of you, and that's okay. You can argue with me in the comments. I don't mind. But I am quite serious when I say that although I love these authors and their books are great, I do think that their works are nothing particularly special. I do think that there are other authors that have similarly beautiful writing that, tackle similar topics and themes that are equally, if not even better than the works by these women. I will say it again. I do really like these authors and I read their books whenever they come out. And the reason I wanted to film this video and just the idea behind it came when I was feeling this level of frustration as I was scrolling through, my BookTok and Bookstagram feeds, and all I was seeing was stuff about Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry or Problematic Summer Romance or whatever it's called by Ali Hazelwood. And these are books that I'm excited about, that I am hyped for. And Great Big Beautiful Life, I got an arc for and I read it and I really enjoyed it. But I did read it and think, this is not particularly special or incredible or life-changing, even in terms of, contemporary commercial fiction, even in terms of romance. I was seeing all this content about Emily Henry and Ali Hazelwood and all these other authors and, V.E. Schwab, her new book is coming out, and all the marketing attention and force that goes behind these books. And then there are people on threads who are getting angry that they didn't get the arc of Great Big Beautiful Life because the publisher sent it to, certain people, and then other people were sending it to other people, and then people were getting angry. All of this is so fascinating to me because we've propped up these authors to godly levels where people are worshiping them, but they are not necessarily people who are worthy of that level of worship. And they are not particularly unique in the stories that they tell. And I don't even mean in the sense that, there are other BIPOC authors who write equally amazing and incredible books, of which there are many. But even among white authors, there are many others, but we prop up specific ones and publishing sort of chooses these darlings and makes a moment out of them. And we all rally behind these people and these books and are constantly talking about it. And it turns the tide of conversation within the book community into this very sort of unnuanced, very boring kind of landscape. I personally find it really boring to scroll through my feed and find only people talking about Emily Henry, and not even in a positive sense. Everyone just talking about her and centering the content around her and the discussion of the community around her and her books and how, some people hate them and some people love them. I get it. These books are popular and that's amazing. But I wonder at the capacity of our community to really diversify our reading and really stretch into all these values that we supposedly believe in. I feel like there's always a point throughout the year where there's a heritage month or a moment when some community is going through some sort of tragedy, and the book community will suddenly prop up that community and say that they're going to read all of these books and do the work, and then yet we are still on a consistent basis only talking about the same white authors. And this is not to blame the book community itself on its own. This is largely influenced by the very real nature of the publishing industry, which to this day only publishes around 15% books by BIPOC authors each year. And these are books published in English, only 15%. And when you actually break down the ethnicities within that percentage, they get staggeringly upsetting as you go through them. Black authors make up a very, very small amount of that. And this month is actually Arab Heritage Month. And I was looking at the stats, and honestly, Arab authors are tracked very little within the stats, and they make up a very, very tiny amount in that percentage. When we flip over to the book creator space, BookTube, Bookstagram, BookTok, as a creator of color, I think the landscape is really difficult, especially if you are someone who actually cares about uplifting diverse and marginalized voices. A lot of people who are watching content only want to hear you talk about the 5 popular authors, or discuss the same topic of which Emily Henry book is the best, over actually getting to hear about underrepresented and new authors. And I get it, that kind of content is fun, and I'm not saying we can't have fun, but I think there is a perception within the book community, and this ties into, the concept of people thinking that reading is not political and that we're making it too political. It's interesting to hear that stance and have people take that stance when, in fact, being a person of color within any space is a political act. Your existence, your being, your appearance is a political statement. You being in places that previously, historically, you have not been able to inhabit, that is a political act. You being able to be the main character or the author of a story that would not have been possible historically, that is a political act. I want to give you a little example of something. So, The Truth According to Ember by Danica Nava. This is one of the first books by an Indigenous author that is a rom-com that is published in traditional publishing. One of the first, or the first, I believe. And this book is a feel-good book. This is a happy book. This is a rom-com book. If you want to enjoy yourself, go read this book. It's fantastic. She is a wonderful writer. It is a fun, cute, adorable story. It's got some spice to it. It's got a wonderful romance, and it's got a kick-ass, endearing Native woman main character. But this book, despite all of its funness, is still a political book. Within this book, the main character struggles to find a job, a corporate job, because often when she is forced to check off some sort of, race or ethnicity survey in her job applications, whenever she checks off Indigenous or Native, she never hears back. But at the beginning of the book, when she decides to check off Caucasian instead, she finds herself actually getting a job. And this part of the book is actually directly lifted from the author's own experience as a Native American woman. So you can't look at a book like this, or any book really, and tell me that it's not political, because even beyond a book told by a BIPOC author, the fact that a white author can write a book about white characters and largely leave out any characters of color, that is a political statement. The fact that many people carry this idea that the fun books are by white authors, that is a political thing, because it perpetuates this idea that only white people can have fun stories. Only white people can have romances, can have fantasy, can have fame and warm, fuzzy stories. Very often, authors of color are only published when they tell stories of suffering, of their own communities suffering through many different things that have been caused by the Western world and colonization and American imperialism. And publishing loves to prioritize these stories of suffering rather than any moment of joy. And even when authors of color do publish stories of happiness and comfort and just soft, warm stories, they're expected to perform their culture, their heritage in some way. And even more often, they are expected to be sort of the expert or the only voice of this one community. Very often, publishing has rejected books because they already had a Black book on the list or a Asian book on the list. Publishing in the book community really doesn't want to hear diverse stories. They just want to hear, the one that fits the narrative that works for them. It's really funny to me because even among authors of color, there are specific ones that we prop up as our darlings, the ones that we are okay hearing their version of the story. But when we hear from other perspectives within the same background, people start to get antsy. I'm pretty sure if I said Asian American fantasy author, there's probably one person who comes to mind for you. And that itself seems crazy to me because, again, we are so obsessed with sort of making celebrities and, propping up the same people rather than seeking so many different perspectives and, trying new things. I feel like authors of color are done such a disservice these days because they are forced to represent, a whole community or a whole heritage or a whole religion. And when they disagree with certain things or they have a different perspective, a slightly different perspective, they are held to this insane standard, even among readers of color as well, who expect, a certain author of a certain background to provide the good rep, of that community, of that background. But what defines good representation? Is it just that it has to be representation that directly reflects your own specific experiences? Or is there more to it? Even within a single faith or background or heritage, there are so many different experiences that differ based off your race, class, your country of origin, your gender, your sexuality. There are so many things that are involved. And I feel like, again, we just hold authors of color to such incredible standards. Meanwhile, a white author can write a mediocre book and everyone just thinks it's, yeah, fine, fun, okay, great. But if an author of color does the same thing, they are held to a crazy standard and they are expected to write books that everyone will love, that will be 5 stars, that will appeal to both the people that want to be represented, but also to white audiences who need to be able to relate and who need to see themselves within these characters and who will often say that they didn't connect because their experiences were so different. If readers of color can empathize with white characters for, several generations, I think you can manage to read a book by an author of color and expand your definition of what you connect to. And this is not limited to white readers either. I think there's even cases where readers of color read books from, different perspectives from themselves and then fall into very similar traps because of the way that we are in this Western world and the way that we have this specific view of things. I posted a story about doing this video and one person brought up the fact that even among people of color, the global South is actually much more at a disadvantage because, again, they don't fit into this mold that Western publishing has, created, that the Western book community has created. And there are a lot of reasons for these things, and part of it is a, declining sense of critical thinking and critical reading amongst everyone. When a lot of people are growing up with technology and not prioritizing any sort of arts or humanities and not understanding the importance of these things, it's bound to create situations like this. Now, I've just been talking about the book community and sort of publishing, but even among people who are not so heavily entrenched in the book community, like I am, like you might be, as people, following the book world. Outside of that, I think there is a lot of this perception that people just want the fun and easy thing. They don't want to think hard. They just want to be entertained. But I think there's an element of what is your definition of entertainment and fun? And why does that not include people of color? Why does that not include queer folks? Why does that not include trans folks? Those of you who have been following my channel for a while know that I have a micro publishing imprint under Bindery, which is like Patreon plus publishing. And some of the tastemakers on the platform have micro imprints where they get to publish books that are submitted to them by agents or by unagented authors. And we get to choose, the books that get to be published. And the idea is that, we as tastemakers, as book influencers, have an idea of what the community, of what our, viewers like and enjoy in books and that they want to see in books that are published. And it's this idea that each micro imprint will not necessarily publish the most popular book, but it will publish a book that a lot of people are going to love, even if it's not the general public. And I think that's a great idea. But I think even as I am considering books for publication for my own imprint, where I technically have all of the control, I am still going through the motions of considering, well, what if someone misunderstands this? What if someone takes this the wrong way? What if this is a representation that is actually very true for a lot of people, but certain people find it, not equivalent to their experience, and so therefore dismiss the book entirely? I don't think every book is for everyone, but I do think there is this element that, me, even as a creator of color, as someone, with this incredible privilege to have this publishing imprint, as I'm considering new submissions, I'm thinking, well, what will this say? Can I stand behind this? What will be the backlash? Can I protect this author and, their very astute writing and words and perspectives when it seems that, the general public and the general reader does not want to think critically about what they're reading? I have this issue a lot whenever I recommend a satire, a book with satire, in which essentially the book is a comedic rendering of some sort of aspect of humanity, of our society, and which seeks to poke fun at that aspect. And I think satire is so very often misunderstood, and people just get angry and pissed off that they don't understand it. And I've seen this happen multiple times with different satirical books that are actually quite powerful. And obviously satire isn't for everyone, but I do think there's a sort of lack of critical thinking and reading going on when people sort of dismiss satirical books, especially ones by people of color, for not understanding what's happening or for not liking what's happening, because I think that's not the point. A lot of satirical books are actually meant to cause discomfort. They are meant to get you to think harder and make you reconsider the preconceived notions that you have. Satire is one of my favorite forms of literary writing because it is a really amazing tool when it's put in the hands of someone who has been historically marginalized or underrepresented, because being able to represent yourself or some aspect of your society in a comedic form and poke fun at the issues within your world without having to tell a complete story of suffering is a powerful tool, just as being able to tell stories of joy is a powerful thing for people of color. Anyways, none of this is new, and all of this is stuff that people have talked about before and people have been saying for ages on various different platforms and various segments of things. But I feel like I just wanted to be honest here on my channel, on my favorite platform, YouTube, because I am allowed to go into the nuance of things and discuss things at length and in depth in this long form content. I think there's a lot of, lack of nuance that comes with a lot of the shorter forms of content that we are consuming these days. And I feel like we just get lost in translation, and it's just so frustrating because I think there are many cases where people are on the same side, they're on the same page, but they are misunderstanding each other and taking things the wrong way and jumping on incendiary words and, blowing things out of proportion. I've been yapping a really long time, so I'm going to stop, but I would love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments and discuss further with you. And I'm sure there will be plenty of people who want to yell at me in the comments, so feel free to. But I do want to end off with a note that I have no ill will towards these authors, and I think they're amazing, and I'm gonna read more of their books. And I think there's nothing wrong with being excited and happy about, the new fun book from the author that you really enjoy. But I do deeply think at the end of the day that the books and media, movies, TV shows, the content that we consume on social media every day, that stuff shapes our sense of reality, our beliefs and our perspectives, and our capacity to empathize with other people and see them as human and as people that we need to respect, that we need to uplift. And I truly love books and reading because it allows me to exercise that level of empathy and to consider things from another perspective. And I think the point of this video is that, if all the perspectives that you are reading from and that you are considering all look the same, then what kind of warped sense of reality are you living in? Because it definitely doesn't resemble the world we live in.